In baseball, you can't always explain why you feel the way you do about certain players.
Number 23, Don Mattingly.
You can say it's about how perfect their swings are, how smooth they look doing all the things ball players do, how hard they work, how much they seem to care. But the truth is, it's not even that measurable. Because with baseball, it's not always about what you see, but rather what you feel. That's the only way to explain his place in the history of the game's most hallowed franchise. The only way to justify his standing among its greatest icons. The only way to make sense of the way so many who watched him play feel about the legend of Donnie Baseball.
From the New York Yankees, number 23, Don Mattingly.
I think it's probably very hard to think of baseball in the 1980s, especially from the mid-80s to the late 80s, where he isn't the face of it.
He's as good a player as I have ever seen in my career.
Way back, goodbye.
Anytime Donnie got to the plate, the pitchers were like, oh, God, not him again.
Deep to right, Mattingly will put the Yankees out in front.
You saw a person who turned himself into as great a first baseman as there was in that era.
Well, one of the reasons I won 2 Gold Gloves in New York was because of Don Mattingly.
That's why he is a Gold Glove first baseman.
We just called him Donnie Baseball because he was what baseball personified. The way he carried himself, the way he comported himself.
Appreciate it. Good luck.
It just seemed perfect. I mean, the whole package, the eye black.
When you used to watch those Sandlot kids come home with dirt all over them, you know, that was Don Mattingly.
If you went to Central Casting in those days in Hollywood and said, send me a baseball player in every way, they would have sent you Don Mattingly.
I think he was the perfect face of the Yankees at the time. He was the captain of the Yankees, and you could just sense that even opponents respected him.
He was as good as there was. He was the captain of the team. I mean, he had to set the example. He was the guy that everybody looked up to.
Everything he did in his career, he was exemplary of how to be a Yankee.
Yes, sir.
You had no choice but just to kind of look up, you know, to him and trying to emulate what he was doing.
He was the perfect Yankee on the field and in the clubhouse, and how he dealt with people and how he led and how hard he worked.
He gives you that impression that he's here to work. He rolls his sleeves up. He doesn't want to shortcut anything. It's blue collar. He never lost the Midwest.
There's always that feeling at home, right? I think people have that it's always where you grew up, it's your childhood.
For Donald Arthur Mattingly, home has always been here, Evansville, Indiana, a city of about 120,000 people in the southwest corner of the state.
I was never like looking to, you know, move to Manhattan or move to LA. I was like, this is a place I come, I can get away. I grew up in this house on the left here. Everything seems so much smaller now. It seemed so big before.
It's here where Don Mattingly, the youngest of 5 kids in his family, began excelling at sports at an early age. He'd become a 3-sport star in high school. But it was on the baseball diamond where he fell in love with the idea of being great.
First baseman Don Mattingly moved over in foul territory. He's got it.
It was a pleasure to coach him. He'd hit 2 or 3 hours before practice. Of course, we'd practice about 3 hours, too. I've never seen anybody that worked any harder than he did.
Fly ball. That looks to be in the gap over the left way over Ted White. On his way to third with his second triple of the ball game.
coach was different from the standpoint of, like, pushing me.
When he was a junior, we were 30-0, and we won a state championship. It's kind of hard to motivate players as seniors, so I just said, if you're the best player in the city, then you want to try to be the best player in the state. Then you want to try to be the best player in the country. He took that to heart, and he remembered that.
That mentality just kind of like, it's like just keep getting better and like never satisfied with what you are, and you got to keep proving that you can get better and be better.
Mattingly was picked by the New York Yankees in the 19th round of the 1979 draft. But he'd quickly establish himself as a prospect in the minors, even if some teammates doubted he had a real future in the game.
Donnie wasn't one of those wow guys when you first saw him. He was a gangly, kind of long-necked guy that kept the bat in the zone a long time, and I kept looking at him and I said, this is that guy they're talking about. Didn't run particularly well, but was a great base runner. Had an average arm at best from the outfield, but could really throw at first base. And then the more you're around him, the more you go, yeah, I see what they're talking about. He was relentless in his pursuit of being as good as he's capable of being. In a lot of ways, he did a lot for my career. Because, I played 7 or 8 years, and I went, okay, he's going to play first base for the Yankees. I said, I'm not. So I got to find something else to do. So thanks, Donnie, for I get on with my career.
Mattingly's talent and his tireless work ethic continued to lift his stock. And in the spring of 1982, he was invited to his first big league training camp. He was 20 years old.
Going to camp, I remember, like, I knew I wasn't making that team. I hadn't even played in AAA yet. But at the end of that year, I got called up. New York just kind of scared me. Coming from here, pulling into the stadium and living in that area, it was a big city. And so that part I was never, like, really comfortable with. But I always felt like the field I was comfortable with.
At first base, young Don Mattingly.
When you have a new kid, you try to tell him everything that you need to tell him to be aware of. And one thing that I forgot to tell him was, I know you're a good fielder, but so am I. Guy bunts, and, I ran over down to the first base line, getting ready to field it when I hear this, I got it. So I got to jump it out of the way.
What a play by Mattingly. I thought Goodby was the only one who had a chance, Bill, on that.
And I went over to him and I told him, I said, the next time you call me off a bunt, I'm going to say your butt's going to be back on that plane as fast as you got here. So the very next inning, the leadoff guy gets on, and I know he's going to bunt. So when I stepped on the mound, I heard this little whistle. When I turned around, he was by first base, and he was, where you want me? I said, you stay right there. He said, okay, got it. I gained so much respect for him because he was playing behind me. He wasn't playing by himself, okay? And that showed me a lot about his character.
I'm just looking to get myself in the lineup somewhere if I'm at first, right field, or left. It doesn't make much difference to me. Just the opportunity to get in the lineup satisfies me.
For a young Don Mattingly, finding an everyday spot in the 1983 Yankees lineup was an elusive pursuit. He was platooned all year long, splitting time between first base and the outfield.
Nice play by Don Mattingly.
Then came 1984, and a mission to prove to his new manager he deserved a regular job.
Yogi's the manager, and I remember the first day he tells me, he goes, you're going to be my swing man.
I've already talked to Don. I told him he's my swing man. And, he could play outfield and first base for me. Like somebody got hurt, I got him to fill in.
And I was just like, you come in there to play every day.
Myself, I feel like if I ever get a chance to play every day and get my at-bats, then they're all going to have a tough time getting me out of there.
I remember telling Yogi, I'm like, Yogi, you get me in there, you're not going to be able to get me out.
He says, one thing you may find out, once you get me in there, you may not get me out. And I like that attitude on that for a kid.
And he goes, oh, okay, kid. He does that, his little thing, he pats you on the back. But I remember I was playing more outfield.
Now Mattingly makes the catch, throw to the plate. They got him! Holy cow! What a throw by Mattingly!
And I think they were trying all kinds of different people at first. Guys were making errors and weren't playing good defense. And I got in there and got like 3 or 4 hits.
That's a base hit. Mattingly's 4th base hit in the second run batted in this ball game.
And then I got in there again the next day and got 2 or 3 again. The next thing you know, I was just playing every day.
There's a smash. Stepped on first, 1 out to the plate. He's got it home. What a double play. How about that?
I hope I'm at first all the time. I think that's the best place for me. And really, it's not really much of an adjustment. I've been playing there just basically all my life.
Mattingly smothers it, and Donnie's over there.
We knew he was the first baseman. As the year 84 went, you know that's going to be it.
Mattingly makes a play. They're going to try to score. He went for third, and he is out. Fine play by Don Mattingly. Boy, you talk about a youngster playing first base.
Just a few months after becoming the Yanks' starting first baseman, he found himself in San Francisco, taking part in his first All-Star game.
Richmond, Indiana. Up Evansville, Indiana. It's Don Mattingly with the Yankees.
But there were still plenty questioning if he had all the tools he needed.
The knock on Donnie was he didn't hit home runs.
You know, I'd like to hit with some power. That's nothing that you can really try to get better at. Just thinking, hopefully I'm going to go stronger as I get older and hit with a little bit more power.
Oh, yeah, he wasn't that type of hitter in the minors and when he first came up. But that's not what a guy is when he comes up. A player doesn't develop all by himself. You need support somewhere.
Mattingly would find it from a veteran teammate, Lou Piniella.
How about that? What's that? What's that?
He was still playing, and he was kind of transitioning into coaching.
Right, just good enough to hit him over the 362 sign.
And he'd been working with me on like weight shift a little bit and bottom hand stuff. And I always put it in play, but I was kind of getting a carve a little bit. And Piniella taught me how to use my bottom hand.
You know when to keep that ball fair?
I started backspinning balls. And all of a sudden, balls I would just miss were going out of the ballpark.
There's a drive going deep to right field. Look out. It is going, it is gone.
Mattingly is not known to be a home run hitter, but in the last couple of games, he has shown a lot of power.
When you knew Donnie and you were around him, you said he's going to figure it out.
3 days, 3 straight home runs. Unbelievable.
You know, the sky's always a limit with guys with that makeup and that inner drive.
He had never hit more than 10 home runs in a season on any professional level before hitting 23 in 1984. But even more impressive was his batting average, which by mid-season was hovering around 350, putting him in the race for the batting title alongside his teammate, the Hall of Famer Dave Winfield.
There was a lot made out of it, and winning was great.
The Yankees win it! A home run for Dave Winfield.
Dave treated me great, made it easy on me. I was kind of the underdog, rookie, not making any money. Winnie was a big free agent, so people are kind of cheering for me instead of him.
Don Mattingly, he's 3 for 3. What's a typical Winfield line drive?
You know, I'm trying to win. He is too. But I just looked at it like, hey, I'm hitting 330 in the big leagues. There's nothing bad going to happen here.
Yes, it was a battle. One of them was going to win it. Who is going to go down to the end?
Don Mattingly and Dave Winfield entered the final day of the regular season with the American League batting title at stake. Yankee manager Yogi Berra wouldn't say which of his stars would win.
Both of them. I wish they'd break even today.
The last day, Donnie was up there, and it's just like his mind was set. He was going to get hits no matter what. And no matter where he threw the ball, it seemed like. I said, you just throw it where he can reach it, he's going to hit it.
And that's exactly what he did. Trailing Winfield by 2 points on the final day of the season, Mattingly went 4 for 5 and won the AL batting title in just his first full season in the majors.
That's got to be a base hit, and he wins the batting crown.
Numbers say Mattingly 343, Winfield 340.
There's no way I was going to be a loser today, or Dave was going to be a loser today. Both had great seasons, and to be separated by that minute amount of points is, I don't think there's a loser today.
The fans in New York just fell in love with him. They look for that player that they can always pull for, and that was Donald Arthur.
I think the mentality of the New York fan is, keep giving it to me. What you did last year doesn't mean anything. It's like what you did yesterday doesn't mean anything. We were trying to win a game tonight. And that was really good for me. I did it in spring of '85. You know, I'm working out in the winter, doing my leg stuff, and I felt something in my knee. But I remember going to spring, and I'm like rehabbing. And that's when they're shooting this post. They want to shoot this poster. And Mr. Steinbrenner's walking through there, and I'm like, oh my God, this is the worst nightmare. I'm still a young puppy, right? And I'm doing a poster, and I am hurt. And it's Mr. Steinbrenner. I'm like, oh, this is not good, right? That's what I think about when I think about that poster.
What kind of numbers would you consider a good season for Don Mattingly in '85?
Well, every year I always said I'd like to hit 300, I'd like to drive in 100 runs, and I'd like to get 200 hits. I just want to do the things that I expect of myself. And I set high standards for myself, what things I want to do. You know, actually, I don't try to please Mr. Steinbrenner. I don't try to please the fans. I try to play to the best of my ability, and if I can do that, I know I'm going to be happy, and I think everybody else will be too.
Now it's time to feature a genuine Yankee Doodle dandy.
Oh, that's gone. Towering home run for Don Mattingly.
Mattingly takes the play there. Fine play by Don Mattingly.
I tell you, he's unbelievable.
In the field or at the plate, Mattingly's a rare breed in baseball.
It was just a time that my career was really just starting. I'd learned a lot. I was kind of getting stronger. I was starting to be able to do things I hadn't been able to do.
And he smoked one to deep right field.
I tell you, that ball jumps off his bat.
And just say, okay, I can do that. Let's push for more, right? And never stop trying to get better.
Mattingly hits one out of here. Holy cow. 4 for 5 for Mattingly. His 35th home run and RBI number 145. What a year.
Donnie was the MVP that year. And, you know, that year was just amazing to watch.
The MVP award was the capstone of a tremendous year. But it was also bittersweet, with the Yankees missing out on the postseason despite winning 97 games.
We were like probably the second or third best team in baseball, record-wise. I mean, teams like us should have been in the playoffs and at least had a chance.
One question we've been asking a lot of the ball players across the league, who would be the one ball player if they had to pay to see, and like 70% of them are saying you.
For that stretch, there wasn't a better player in the game, defensively, offensively.
He was as good as there was. He just played the game with a great passion because he could do the little things. He could rise to the occasion. If you needed a double, you needed a home run, he could do that. And Donnie didn't strike out, and I'm sure when he struck out, he wanted to break something every time he did. I was the same way.
For me, I just hardly ever struck out. You know, I could always just, what I swung at, I hit.
A Mattingly strikeout was so rare that from 1984 to 1986, he was more than twice as likely to either double or homer than go down on strikes, a notion that would be unheard of now.
This hit way back in right field. I mean, that bat came around like a rattlesnake.
86, I felt like was my best year. For me, that was like a hit for power, hit for average.
Mattingly led the league in hits, doubles, and slugging in 1986, hitting .352 with 31 home runs and finishing runner-up in MVP voting. But despite his success, for the second straight year, a 90-win Yankee team missed the postseason. All Mattingly could do was return in '87 with the same relentless drive as ever.
Oh, Donnie.
Donnie was one of the hardest workers that I had ever seen and played with. He would go in the cage before batting practice and take batting practice. Then after batting practice was over, he'd take batting practice.
The one thing with him, and I think Mike Pagliarulo also fell under this, they hit so much in the cage.
I know Donnie loved it, and I guess we probably could have cut that back a little bit if you had to go back. You know, it probably took a little bit too much on the body, wear and tear on the body.
Other way.
I'm not a doctor, I don't play one on TV, but just think of the torque that it creates on your back.
You know what it is? Like when you're young, you just keep going. Like you don't stop and nothing's gonna stop you. You think you're bulletproof and you're not gonna get hurt. And then eventually 87 was the first time it's like, no, you can't keep going, right? You're gonna have to stop.
Don Mattingly will be out for at least the next 2 weeks. While taking batting practice last night, he strained a muscle.
I don't know, I was on the DL 2-3 weeks, whatever, and came right back and jumped right into it and got hot. And so it's like, nothing's gonna stop me.
On July 8th, 2 weeks after coming off the disabled list, Mattingly hit 2 home runs in a Yankee victory.
When you hit a home run, you know, like one game, okay, and then the next day you hit another one. Well, a lot of guys do that, you know, no big deal. And then you hit another one.
On July 12th, the day before the All-Star break, the streak reached 5 straight games with a home run.
A home run for Mattingly, his 5th straight ball game.
And then the first thing you get mad because of the All-Star break, because you stop what he's doing.
And now, the 1987 All-Stars. Batting second and playing first base, the only major leaguer to win an RBI title, batting title, and MVP award in his first 3 seasons. From the New York Yankees, number 23, Don Mattingly.
Usually you're either hot and you take 2 or 3 days off, it's not gonna be the same. But came right out of the break, and I think it was Charlie Huff that clicked it.
He hits it high and deep. Will it stay fair down the line? Goodbye, grand slam. 4th of the year for Don Mattingly.
So all of a sudden it happened again, and it just kind of grew.
Oh, yes, he got it. Mattingly is now in it. Holy cow. Hit home runs in 7 straight games.
When he was locked in, he could hit the ball out of anywhere. It didn't have to be a short porch in right field.
Hey, did he get all of it? Did he? Holy cow, he did it! Holy cow, Mattingly is unbelievable! The opposite field, holy cow!
Don Mattingly has just tied a record set back in 1956 by the Pirates' Dale Long. A home run in 8 consecutive games.
Folks, please welcome, from the New York Yankees, first baseman, Don Mattingly. Don Mattingly. 8 consecutive games you hit a home run.
It was kind of a situation where my swing was feeling good.
Yeah.
I felt good at the plate, and it's the time where I feel like I'm hit the ball hard. And I would say, hey, I feel like I'm going to hit one today.
Yeah.
And every day, I'm hit one every day, I said.
And then after 8, did you say, I'm not going to hit one today? See, maybe that was the problem.
Watching Donnie perform that year, he did something that would cause everybody else to just go, wow, I wish I could do that like once. He does it twice a week.
Here it goes. Long drive and a grand slam upper deck. A new major league single season record for Mattingly, 6 grand slams.
It felt good, but it was just all about trying to win. And you know, in New York, it's about winning. And that part was getting frustrating.
Hello, are you Don Mattingly?
Yes, I am. Come in. Can I get you something? What's your name?
Yeah, The Simpsons. I've never seen the full episode. I've probably only seen the clip maybe once or twice.
Mattingly, get rid of those sideburns.
What sideburns?
You heard me, hippie.
When I was managing LA, we went to Australia. And I'm not kidding you, that was like more people knew that episode than knew anything about anything I'd ever did in baseball. Hearing that accent telling me to shave those sideburns.
Mattingly! I thought I told you to trim those sideburns. Go home. You're off the team for good.
Fine. Still like him better than Steinbrenner.
I'm still getting checks for like now and then. What are they, like 87 cents or something now?
Don Mattingly's individual accomplishments over his first 4 seasons took the baseball world by storm. But the Yankees failed to make the playoffs in each of those years. Frustration around the team was beginning to grow, with no one angrier than the team's notoriously impatient owner, George Steinbrenner. And salary negotiations didn't help his relationship with his biggest star.
Arbitration are always kind of, who knows what's going to happen, right? He calls and it's like, hey, don't take it personal. It's just business. Whatever's said in there. He goes, it's just business. Well, I win, right? And then he comes out and says the farmers in Indiana and the taxi cab drivers I'm not the all-American boy anymore. All I care about is money. And I was like,
Now talk about Mattingly. You were riding Mattingly a little in spring training, and you're on him again. Everybody says
I ain't been on him. You're sticking up for him because he's from Indiana too.
That's right, Evansville.
But all I said was that it's different now, Don. You're going to have a lot of pressure on you, and when you get up there with the bases loaded now, all the pressure isn't on Henderson and Winfield. It's going to be on Don Mattingly, and you're going to have to come through.
And I think what took it over the edge for me was the home run streak. He comes out and says something about all he cares about is records. And that kind of bothered me. And I just blew up one day in the papers about respect. You got to respect me as a man.
The back and forth subsided in '87, but erupted again in 1988, which led to swirling trade rumors.
Mattingly today, in one of the New York papers, was quoted as saying that he didn't know if he was going to be traded or not. He says if he gets traded, so be it. But he also said he's not going to quietly take any slings and barbs from the Yankees owner any longer.
There was some real tension between Mattingly and Steinbrenner. There had been talk of a Will Clark-Don Mattingly trade.
Dallas Green's been named the manager, and Dallas calls me. He says, Donnie, do you want to be here? I said, yeah, I want to be here. But I said, but you got to treat me with respect. He goes, do you mind calling him? I go, okay, no problem. So I call him, and we have the same conversation again about respect. And he's like, well, he fires off something as I'll trade you to Cleveland. That was one of the things. I'll send you to Cleveland. I tell you, I said, you can send me anywhere you want, but you can't take the field from me. You can't change that part. And he said, well, good luck to you. And he hangs up. And I'm like, uh-oh, we're out of here.
George respected people that stood up to him. George did not want to be told, yes, sir, I'll do whatever you want. He wanted someone to go back at him.
Sometimes it takes, for my dad, a situation like that, for him to really realize, how much he respects a person.
I think once I stood up for myself and said, hey, I'm not putting up with it. You can do whatever. That's when it was like, okay, we're good. It was over.
The hard-earned truce ended up leading to talks for a long-term deal for Mattingly in the spring of 1990. When he signed the 5-year contract, he became the highest-paid player in the game and set to remain the face of its most storied franchise, for better and for worse.
Obviously, he's the beloved figure. It's the kind of guy who generally spends his career as a Yankee, and the contract pretty much assured that that would happen. But then right away, like in '89, they were a bad team. They finished like 10 under, but in '90, they hit the pits.
The Yankees' worst start in years and years, worst record in baseball.
Almost like the frame that was surrounding the Mona Lisa was starting to chip. It didn't fit that Don Mattingly would be on a bad team, but it was slowly becoming that.
He kind of bears the brunt because he's the constant as this team goes from being a perennial contender to just going down the tubes. This is an embarrassment of a franchise right now.
As the club hit rock bottom, the back issues that had begun to plague Mattingly a few years earlier resurfaced and then worsened.
Don Mattingly sitting out his second straight game. Yesterday in early batting practice, he felt a twinge in the back.
I'll never forget this. We're in Cleveland, and he had to leave the team because his back blew out. That was the beginning where it became a habitual thing. And then you could see he wasn't swinging with the same torque. He was kind of swinging with management.
Pretty much only with his hands.
There's no snap in the swing or anything.
That goes to show you his back problems.
Oh, sure. He's just not hitting from that deep crouch like he used to when he was putting up those Lou Gehrig type numbers.
I think the difference was if a ball went up in the air,
There's a high drive deep to right field.
You weren't sure if it was going out.
Back to the wall. He waits, and he's got it.
And it usually didn't.
What happens to his Hall of Fame credentials, which were so brilliant his first 5 years or so?
His last 6 years, he's averaging only 10 homers a year, and seasons where he had as few as 5 home runs. You know, for a first baseman, that's not really acceptable power output, and when he didn't have that, his value suffered, and the Yankees suffered for it.
Then came insult added to the injury, in the form of one of the stranger controversies any baseball star ever endured.
It was kind of the mullet days. There was a lot of it going on around baseball. And we had a number of guys in our club that I felt like had long hair too. It was Stump that, you know, kind of let me know at some point before the game, if you don't get your haircut today, you don't play. And I'm like, man, I play hurt. I'm here every day. I'm on time, I'm in shape, and you're gonna single me out right now? And I just felt like that was wrong. So I thought about it. And so I went back in his office and said, I'm not playing.
Don being set down yesterday, fined for not getting his hair cut.
The fact that he wouldn't cut his hair right away, that became a national story because it's Don Mattingly. The Yankees have their rules, and Don Mattingly is a rules follower, but everything was so messed up back then. I mean, the team was just awful. It didn't seem like it was the Yankees.
It is unbelievable over a haircut.
Got my haircut the next day. I didn't want to sit out games because of that.
The hair has been trimmed at least a good 1/8 of an inch. More importantly, the hair was cut.
That was a mess. You know, you learn a lot of things about what not to do. Donnie, there's not a mean bone in his body, but don't push him up against the wall. He's got a lot of backbone, and it didn't need to be that.
Even through his injuries and the tough times, the Yankees did extend Don Mattingly an honor as they searched for stability in the spring of 1991, naming him team captain.
He understood the history. He understood what it meant to wear the pinstripe. I mean, he truly did. And it was just evident that he was a great leader, a good mentor to the younger players, and the perfect captain for the team.
The move actually came at a pivotal time. With the club committing to rebuild and develop young players from the minor leagues, Donnie Baseball would be a constant, set to influence a new generation of Yankees.
Young players kind of start looking for people that they can relate to, whether it's their demeanor during the game, the way that they go about practice and their work ethic doing their drills. And for me, Don was that guy that I always looked up to.
There was a bond that fortified that admiration when Mattingly took an active role in helping Bernie Williams adjust to major league life.
I was kind of hazed by some of the older guys, and I was very sensitive and very emotional.
They used to call him Bambi, and they'd make fun of him. And he had those Coke bottle glasses, and he was very skinny.
He was kind of getting bullied a little bit. Bernie was quiet, and he made mistakes on the field, like everybody does.
Donnie didn't like hazing. He didn't like that. You're in the clubhouse, you're part of this team.
Mattingly shut it down, and it just stopped because Mattingly wouldn't allow it.
He actually had to step in and say, hey, leave the guy alone. And then he took me in the back of the bus, and he said to me, hey, you're a good player. You have the potential to be a better player than you are right now, but these are the things that you have to do.
Just talking about how good he was. Can't let anybody tell you that you can't play, and that was it.
To me, that was one of the pivotal times in my career where I could look back and say, that conversation with him took me to the next level.
Emerging young players like Williams were a positive sign for the Yankees, but they were surrounded by a culture of losing that had taken hold.
If you think of a Western where the sheriff comes to town to clean it up, the first act was before it needed to get better, it needed to stop being worse.
Buck Showalter, he deserves to be in the middle of the Yankee picture because he's done a great job as the youngest manager in baseball.
16 years in the Yankee organization as a player, minor league manager where he had a lot of success.
Buck became the manager in the '92 season, and he really worked on exterminating certain negative influences in the clubhouse, and he knew he had a like traveler in Mattingly.
To me, it irritates me when guys aren't ready to play. They come out and they don't feel like playing one way or the other. And to me, that's wrong. If you don't feel like playing, then get out of the lineup or do something.
Mattingly and Buck Showalter, they weeded out the people in the clubhouse.
We got better by who we subtracted as much as who we added. It was one of those things where we're not where we've been. We're not where we're going to be, but we're on our way. So we shut up and worked and surround ourselves with players that kind of fit who we were, who we had to be. And it started with Donnie.
Buck was instrumental in the change. Buck knew what it took in the locker room. I remember he said, I got to find guys that it bothers them when we lose. He was definitely instrumental for me putting things on track. And those are some of the most fun teams I played on.
That 92 team, that begins cleanup. By 93, they get much better, and now they're off and running.
I remember, I think it was 1986 or 87, and I was notorious for being a slow starter. I was happy if I was hitting 210 at the end of April. Well, I don't think Donnie was that happy. You know, we were struggling so bad, and I was talking to him during batting practice a little bit, and I said, you know, you might be the only player in the league worse than me right now. We were both hitting like 188. I said, let's go out and have a few beers tonight. So we went out and had a few beers. Well, a few beers lasted a little longer than a few beers. And we probably got home at 2:30 in the morning, 1 o'clock game the next day. And I wasn't feeling all that chipper. And I remember the Yankees came up first, and I was playing first base then. And Donnie got a base hit his first at-bat. He gets on first base, and we're kind of sharing a chuckle. I said, I feel like shit. How do you? I feel like shit too, you know? And then I come up in the bottom of the first, and I get a base hit. Now we're all laughing, you know? And I didn't get close to a lot of other players. I really didn't. But I did it with Don Mattingly.
When they signed Wade Boggs over here, everyone was saying, this is going to be a disaster. Don Mattingly, Wade Boggs on the same team?
That was good back page reading because the Boston fans said that Don Mattingly and myself won't get along, that we'll be fighting in the clubhouse.
Well, lo and behold, we get to spring training, and the first thing that happens when the writers are allowed back on the minor league fields, there's Don Mattingly and Wade Boggs in the outfield together. And I remember smiling, and I say, Donnie did this. This is going to work.
At the start of 1993, the Yankees had a revamped roster, a new manager, and for the first time in years, real promise. But while the club's results were trending upwards, Don Mattingly's bad back and other nagging injuries had sapped him of his production, leading to speculation the end for Donnie baseball might be near.
You know, earlier this year, the New York press said, you can't do it anymore. Let's get rid of him, which was a little bit of an insult for a guy who's contributed so much.
It's awful, awful, because I know how he took it. I remember he came in one time. I was taking a lot of grief from the media about him hitting fifth. And he came in one day and said, Buck, listen, why don't you drop me down?
Yeah, I remember telling him, I'm like, man, I'm killing us. You know, you can get me out of there. Don't be afraid. You're not going to hurt my feelings. I want to win.
I got up and closed the door. Just my way of telling him, I said, you know, are you telling me who to bat and what batting order to use? Well, no, I'm just telling you, take some. I said, no, I said, I'll decide where you're going to hit.
Mattingly would make good on Showalter's decision with the lineup, bouncing back by midseason and helping to lead the Yankees to a second-place finish in 1993. Then in '94, the Bombers looked primed for a postseason run, taking over sole possession of first place on the 1st of May and expanding on their lead from there. At long last, it looked like Donnie baseball was going to play in October.
Base hit right field. Tying run in. Here's the throw to the plate. Do you believe this? The Yankees have won it.
I love that group of guys, and I think that got me right again because it got to be about competition again.
It was the best team I'd ever played on. I knew that I was going to win a World Series that year.
Well, there is no joy in Mudville tonight or anywhere else baseball is played for that matter. For the first time in almost a century, a major league season will not finish on the field.
That was tough because, you know, again, we had a good club. It'd been so long to get there.
It felt like no player was giving up more in that particular season for their legacy, for their emotions than Don Mattingly.
I probably wouldn't have played in '95 if we would have made the playoffs in '94. Like I was at that point with family and everything, that my kids, that, you know, that part was getting hard for me.
But after the way the '94 season ended, Mattingly came back in '95 with the focus on the fact that he'd never played in the postseason ever more glaring.
I don't even know how many games it was that have played the most games without making it to the postseason or whatever. You know, and I'd always be on that list, and I didn't like that list very much.
Though with most of the same group coming back for the '95 season, most expected the Yankees to dominate the American League again. But it wouldn't work out that way.
We were rolling in '94, and we just didn't seem to be able to get this thing on the tracks.
The Yankees played up and down baseball all summer long, while Mattingly battled back injuries and struggled to stay in the lineup. By the start of September, they were 14 games out in the AL East. The division title was out of reach, but they did still have life, thanks to a new addition to the game, the wild card. Capturing that extra playoff bid was no sure thing, but for his part, at the age of 34, the Yankee captain was going to leave nothing behind trying.
He came in with about 2 or 3 weeks to go in the season. He said, "Buck, I just want you to know I'm going for it." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "I'm going to let it rip for the next 2 weeks. I may blow it out in day 2, but I'm going for it." And I got to tell you, for 2 or 3 weeks, he was Mattingly of old. That last year, I was like, oh my God.
Mattingly can still do it, can he?
I mean, it was just this, hey, I'm here. I'm not going to hold anything back. If my back falls apart, so be it.
And I just remember talking so much trash in the locker room late in that year. It was like, hey, we got to win every day. Every day. So we win a game, it's like we got to win tomorrow. And I think that was probably as much fun as I ever had. That was fun.
Way back, goodbye.
Over the season's final 3 weeks, Mattingly batted .349 and led the Yankees to 18 wins in 22 games, giving them control of their fate on the final day of the season.
We've played great baseball down the stretch, and we've given ourselves an opportunity to control our own destiny today.
God, a home run for Don Mattingly in the game that could send him to the first postseason of his career. He finds the stroke that so many said was gone.
That run at the end of '95 was spurred by their desire to get Mattingly to the postseason.
That was probably the forethought on everybody's mind was we need to get to the playoffs for Donnie.
All you have to do is watch the last game that they won in Toronto where they clinched and Mattingly goes down to his right knee. They all were celebrating with him.
The New York Yankees have won the 1995 first ever wild card. Don Mattingly finally going to the postseason.
It felt so good to get in that day in Toronto when we clinched. Oh my gosh.
You know, good feeling. I know excited. Probably sound just like everybody else that made it, but it's a great feeling for me, man. 13 years, man. It's wow. It feels great.
We're here. We're live. Yankee Stadium. This is the best place to be in the world. We waited a long time. Looks good.
October 3rd, 1995. After a 14-year drought, the Bronx was buzzing. The Yankees were back in the postseason. And at the stadium, Don Mattingly was poised to make his long-awaited playoff debut against the Mariners.
It just felt great because, you know, you spend your whole career fighting to get in and to be able to get a chance to play in postseason and like you want to play on that stage, right? And I wanted to see how I would react on that stage.
Well, it feels great to be out here and to be playing when everybody else is going back home, basically. And you know, it's been a long time coming. It feels good. It feels worth it now. You know, everything that you know I've been through, our team's been through over the years, the organization over the past, you know, for me, 12 or 13 years. It feels great.
And we are ready for baseball. Yankee fans have waited since 1981. 14 years.
Don Mattingly waited 1,785 games to play in the postseason.
Nothing compares to Yankee Stadium before Game 1. 55,000 people were in their seats, locked and loaded. And they were all there for Don Mattingly. And when he came out and ran sprints, the place went nuts. Just absolute nuts. Every time I talk about it, to this moment, I get goosebumps.
That building was crazy, that first game. And just coming out to run, I remember telling somebody I felt fast. That was a foreign feeling for me, but it was just like so light. The energy and the adrenaline for that was just so cool. The building was just going crazy.
I remember the noise level. I remember just having that electricity in the air.
At first base, number 23, Don Mattingly.
And they've waited 13 years for Don Mattingly to get this ovation.
The outpouring of love from the fan base that this guy finally was getting his chance. Just amazing.
A standing ovation for the captain, Don Mattingly.
It was electric, and I think the fans, they were sort of on the edge of their seat, wondering how he was going to respond to that.
Mattingly's chance would come quickly.
Well, here's what the theater of baseball is all about.
The 6th inning of Game 1, with the score tied at 2.
Mattingly, base hit right field. Jay Buhner giving chase. Yankees take the lead, but a Don Mattingly single.
He went 2 for 4 in the game to help the Yankees take it.
Was it as good as you anticipated it would be to trot out on the field for a postseason game as a New York Yankee?
It was better than I ever thought it would be.
It was good.
Oh, definitely. It was great. It was great.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
Thanks, Don.
The encore would be even better. When in Game 2 the next night, Mattingly again came to the plate in the 6th, with the score tied at 2.
Fight to get to the playoffs. You want to show people you're fighting for respect still. You want to show people you can still play.
Don Mattingly. The fans want a dinger out of him.
You know it's loud. You know it's crazy. But it's almost like background noise at that point. Then it gets back to, what am I doing with this guy? Looking for the changeup, the hole at bat, knowing that I'm going to get it in there somewhere, and then he ends up throwing it for a strike.
This one by Mattingly. Oh, hang on to the roof. Goodbye, home run. Don Mattingly.
This place is going ballistic.
I mean, if the Yankee Stadium had a roof, it would have been blown off.
I got up out of the dugout. A lot of people may have thought I was up to congratulate him. I actually thought the dugout was going to crumble. The concrete blocks were shaking. I've never seen anything like that stadium that day.
I actually turned to the person who was sitting next to me and I said, I think we're going to go down. We were moving, like the press box was moving. And I was like, holy cow, like this is really how we're going to die, and someone hit a home run at Yankee Stadium.
One of those moments where I don't care how long you've been doing it, you kind of step back as they're collecting the debris off the field and you go, okay, that was pretty cool. I got to be here for that. You're going to reach back for that memory as you get older, and I do.
It was a moment almost perfectly in what would turn out to be his last home game ever, where they got to say, we love you in this gigantic way.
The Yankees headed cross-country to Seattle with a 2-0 series lead, and their captain savoring every moment of the experience.
I knew I was done, right? I knew this was my last chance.
If he was in a race against time, Mattingly was emptying his tank. He'd hit .417 in the series, but the Mariners won games 3 and 4 to tie it back up. Suddenly, the Yankees' season, and maybe Don Mattingly's career, were hanging in the balance.
It was hard, you know, because the whole time you think you're going to win it, you think you're going to win the series, and all of a sudden it's like, it was quick too, like, it was over.
It was so devastating, you know, the way that we kind of went down. That last hit, Edgar, Gerald's throwing that ball and then having Griffey score, and then it was like all of a sudden, poof, it's gone.
This has been a series that fans are going to be talking about for the ages.
That was just one that hurt because, you know, I feel like we had a good team. We'd fought for so much, and it's just like the crash.
An incredible series comes to a breathtaking end.
There was a strange dichotomy in the clubhouse after that game. Buck Showalter in his office, after he talked to some reporters, like if you walk by the door, he was crying. Jack McDowell and David Cohn were crying. Mattingly, I remember sitting there and dealing with wave after wave of reporters, and of course, he wanted to win, but there was a little bit of exhilaration that he had finally gotten there. He always wanted to know, can I perform in this forum? And as much as winning was the most important thing, I think there was this self-pride. I didn't go out on my shield. I went out still being able to play at a decently high level. It felt like that in retrospect a little bit.
I'm sure I'll remember the first playoffs. And, you know, obviously it's a loss, but it didn't come out right. But I'll definitely remember it.
I just came out of the Yankee clubhouse. You have to wonder, was this Mattingly's last game?
We were sitting in the clubhouse after the game, and he said, "Bogsy, I'm done." And being involved with something like that, to where a great player of the game says, you're done, it's a hard thing to swallow.
I didn't realize that it was going to be it for Donnie until the plane ride home from Seattle in 1995, which was the most excruciating 6 hours I've ever spent on an airplane. Everybody was crying, and Donnie came and sat and talked to everybody one at a time. I remember thinking that he was saying goodbye.
I call that 6-hour flight the flying funeral. Players sobbing. And all of them sobbing, not because they had lost, but the players were crying for him.
That was painful. You know, for me, it's kind of twofold. I know that's in my heart. I don't retire completely, but pretty much know that's the end of the road. That was it for me.
Boy, see you, man. Talk to you.
I remember a conversation with Don in '91. We were sitting in an airport, I guess, waiting for a flight, and you know, he was upset that my dad would oftentimes trade away really good young prospects to try to win it now, win it now, win it now. I took it to heart and started to talk to my dad about it. And then lo and behold, come '95, we've got this great young crop of players that we didn't trade away. That conversation in the airport still sticks with me today. You know, without that conversation, who knows if we had seen a Jeter and a Rivera and a Posada.
As spring training began in 1996, the Yankees looked a lot different. Joe Torre was their new manager, and Tino Martinez was their new first baseman. As for Don Mattingly, he was in Evansville on his farm with his family. Officially, he'd put his career on hold. While back in New York, the Yankees would bring home the World Series title that had eluded him for the 14 years he played there.
The Yankees are champions of baseball.
96, Donnie was on everyone's mind as we were going through that year and we got to the playoffs, and especially when we got to the World Series, he was always on mine. Everyone knew that Don Mattingly should be there. And for Donnie, knowing that, man, if I'd have gone one more year, I would have had that World Series ring.
Yeah, would it be great? Would I want to be part of that? Absolutely. You make decisions in your life, and I could have kept playing. That's not the decision I made. I made a decision to be with my family and to be with my kids. And so when you make that decision, you give up something.
He still wasn't officially retired, though, and he weighed a potential return to the game in 1997, a return that could have taken him out of the Bronx for the first time.
Two people call me. Bob Boone calls me, and Tony called me, La Russa. Tony was in St. Louis, and I always kind of wanted to play close to home. I always thought that'd be great to play close to home. I knew it was getting close enough that, like, if I really wanted to play, I had to get after it. I had to get back in the gym. I had to start hitting. I had to start doing a bunch of stuff. And you know what? I kept finding reasons not to do it. I was having more fun at the farm.
Oh, happy. Oh, happy.
You know, I'd rather go to the farm and clean stalls. I'd rather go mow the fields.
I'll drive. Let's go. He'll get your way.
There was a price to pay to have success, and I wasn't willing to pay it.
Yeah, this is a momentous occasion for the Yankees. We've had the greats, but here is one of the truly great. I don't believe that there is any player that I have ever had on the New York Yankees since I have been here as great as Don Mattingly in every way.
5 months after that press conference, the club retired Mattingly's number 23, making him the only Yankee who never won a title to receive that honor.
We've known him as the hitman, captain, and Donnie Baseball. He is Donald Arthur Mattingly, and we are privileged today to honor him at Yankee Stadium.
I think it gives that wall even more credibility that someone like Donnie's out there.
For all of those years that he played, New York City was Don Mattingly. It was Don Mattingly's town.
It kind of plays out as a tragic novel. He struggled all those years, and they finally get to the playoffs, and then he retires, and then there they go.
The New York Yankees, world champions, team of the decade, most successful franchise of the century.
That's what you dreamed he was going to be a part of, that dynastic sort of run where they win 4 of the next 5 World Series. That's the sad part of it.
The worst timing of any player in Yankee history. If his back would have held up, and if he was able to play 4 or 5 more years when Jeter and those guys came up, he would have been the captain of one of the greatest sports dynasties of all time and be in Cooperstown right now as we speak.
You're going to ask me if I go to play 3 more years or 4 more years and been a part of a world championship team or whatever. You know, I would trade it for my boys, right? And that's really the decision that I made. I wanted to be, I didn't want the boys growing up without their dad. It's a hard decision, but it's really not, to be quite honest with you. And in the reality of who you are as a person and what this world is, where's baseball really fit into that, you know, compared to your kids?
He just wanted to spend time with us, you know, and be able to go to our baseball games or basketball games and football and just be one, you know, just one of us and part of the family again. And I think just like having those moments to be able to talk to him in person, like when stuff comes up, like you ask questions and he's always there for great advice. And one thing on my dad is he's never pushed me to do anything, so he's always let me kind of carve my own path, and I'm really appreciative for that.
And part of his approach as a father, it turns out, stemmed from the memories of the way his dad dealt with him.
I go to my dad a lot, and I always get emotional when I talk about my dad because, you know, he just showed up. My mom and dad were kind of come to every game that I played and my brothers played, and never, I don't ever remember getting criticized, seriously, by my dad for a game, for a bad play, but nothing on the other side either, right? So it was never like, hey, you were really good today. None of that either. It was really more just they were there, and I had zero fear of screwing up because I never got criticized. Really, that lack of fear of screwing up allows you to just grow and get better, take chances, not be afraid to make a mistake. If it doesn't work, learn from it and move on.
Hitting coach, number 23, Don Mattingly.
When he got back into coaching, I was kind of one of the people who said, Dad, you need to go back. Like, I know he's a baseball guy. He needs to be on the field. He should be on the field, and it's part of who he is.
You don't play the game of baseball, you live it, and that's who Donnie still is. He knows every aspect of the game, and he knows how to win.
After 7 years away from baseball, Don Mattingly returned to the game in 2004, first as a coach for the Yankees, and later managing the Dodgers, and now the Marlins, where he was named NL Manager of the Year in 2020. He's been on the staff of 10 postseason teams, but is still looking for his first ever trip to the World Series.
I think that ring is the one thing you want is that you never get away from. It's like getting that shot at it. But it's always kind of back to the same thing. You know, once you start coaching, it's really about players. You know, your true success is guys are having success, right? So and it's the same as a manager. You want your team to play the best baseball they can play. You want guys to develop to be the best players they can be. That's really what I'm after. And if I get that from enough guys, then we got a chance to win.
It's now been more than a quarter century since he swung a bat in the majors. But people still remember what a great ball player Don Mattingly was. The resume holds up too. The .307 career batting average, 6 All-Star appearances, 9 Gold Gloves, a batting title, and an MVP award.
Long drive, right field. You can forget it.
But it still hasn't been enough to land Donnie Baseball in the game's Hall of Fame. That outrages plenty of fans, but not the man himself.
Honestly, I already played all my cards. I'm out of cards. I don't get another shuffle. I don't get another hand. Am I disappointed in my own career? Yeah, parts of it I am. You know, parts that I'm very proud of, parts of it I'm not, because I don't feel like I was as good as I should have been. I should have learned quicker to not beat my body up, and I did less and perform better.
Opinions on his standing for the Hall have long varied, and the debate continues.
The reality is he had 4 to 6 foundational seasons for a Hall of Fame case and almost nothing else that really helps him. Anytime you retire in your mid-30s, you're going to wind up short in the career marks that tend to influence Hall of Fame voters the most.
They always go by a lot of longevity. Donnie didn't have the opportunity to play 18, 20 years, but certainly Donnie was a Hall of Fame caliber player.
Because his numbers to some fall a little bit short, he's not in there. But if you lived the Don Mattingly story in real time, you realized how important he was to the game.
The hit man once again comes through.
Everything was there. For Don Mattingly, everything was there to be in Cooperstown. I look around the Hall of Fame, I've gone back for 17 years now, and I keep wondering when I'm going to walk through the door and there's Don Mattingly.
Don Mattingly might not have lasted long enough as a player to find his way to Cooperstown. But in a way, he didn't have to. His prime might have been shorter than most, but it was also greater than most.
This hit way back in right field.
Though it was never just about how great he was, but how he did it. That's how the kid from Evansville won hearts in the Big Apple. Became just about the epitome of a baseball star, and earned what always meant the most to him anyway.
You fight for respect in this game. It wasn't necessarily respect of someone that a fan or a writer or something like that. It was more respect of, like, I wanted George Brett to think I was a good player.
It blew me away when he said he wanted George Brett to respect him, because I respected him. If I'm going to be in a foxhole, who do I want with me? Playing against Don Mattingly, he was the guy. In my mind, he's a Hall of Famer. He's one of the best ball players I ever played against.
Unbelievable.
You know, Donnie was kind of everything baseball should be about. There's very few guys that I would say that their substance was their style. Donnie's substance was his style.
It wasn't about perception, it was about reality with Don Mattingly. He didn't play for any kind of adulation. He played because the game demanded that he play as hard as he could for as long as he could.
You know, it's kind of sad that we didn't see him healthier for a long period of time, but you know what? We saw a pretty damn good baseball player for a long time.
There it goes. Mattingly drives it. Oh, hang on to the roof.
In his mind, he was playing for something bigger than himself, carrying himself with dignity and character and integrity. You want to play this game, but you don't just want to pass through. You want to make a mark in the game, and he certainly did.
Holy cow, Mattingly is unbelievable.
He's doing it in the biggest city. He's doing it for the most famous team. He's doing it by being a stand-up person. Even if he never makes Cooperstown, I think the history of baseball includes his name in a way that a lot of people who do make the Hall of Fame aren't spoken about.
You could sit down and you could talk about that man for quite a long time. I don't think you're going to see too many Donald Arthur Mattingly's around in the future.